Hey guys, it's JoINrbs here, coming at you with a Long War 2 class review. Today we're looking at late game Grenadiers. In all of these class reviews, I talk about Alpha Strike, how good a soldier is at killing enemies, and Breakdown, how good a soldier is at excelling when enemies don't get killed. And in the early and mid game reviews for Grenadiers, I wasn't super pro Grenadier in general. In the early game, I thought that they were just not great at all. We took rapid deployment, heavy ordnance, and blue screen bombs, but I said that Sapper was a pretty viable option. Formidable is a very viable option as well. And in mid-game, while they pick up dense smoke and sting grenades, which are very unique and powerful perks, things that no other soldier can quite duplicate, they still suck at killing stuff. They have incendiary grenades, and they're sort of good at killing things with those a little bit, but they're very expensive to get. You don't have to get incendiary grenades every campaign, and especially on Legend Iron Man, you're often going to be dealing with an economy which can't support getting incendiary grenades early on in a campaign and may never get them. So you can't really rely on that, and as such, they struggle to kill things. They're a useful addition to a squad which already has enough damage to kill stuff, but I mean, you have to decide to bring them over somebody else who could also help with killing things very well, so it's sort of bittersweet to add them to any team in the early or mid game, in my opinion. Late game doesn't really change that for me, but it definitely makes Grenadiers a lot stronger. There are two considerations here. One is that the binary nature of missions starts to work in Grenadiers' favor quite a lot later on in the game, in my opinion. In small missions, Grenadier consumables stop being a limitation. You can just use them as much as you want and you won't run out, because they get access to full kit at Master Sergeant if they want, which will give them another 2 or 3 grenades. And in large missions, you start running into pods which are actually large enough that something like a sting grenade is extremely valuable. The higher the density of enemies on a mission, the more valuable something with AoE is going to be. That said, I still don't think they're like an amazing late game class. I gave them 7 out of 10 for Alpha Striking, which is a huge bump up, and we'll talk about why soon. And I gave them 6 out of 10 for Breakdowns, which is actually worse than I rated them in mid game. That's because dense smoke becomes a little bit less reliable as late game enemies pick up both higher aim and more abilities which don't require aim at all. And sting grenades remain good, but sort of become less relevant in a way. Like those early game or those the late game low threat missions that you play start not needing sting grenades ever, because you just kill everything, and if there's something you don't kill, it's like one target and you stun it with an assault arc thrower or something like that. And then the late game missions, you don't have enough sting grenades to control everything, so you sort of care a little bit more about damage output, or a dense smoke lasts a lot longer than a sting grenade and can be applied to your soldiers. You get to position how you want, so you can engineer ways to make a dense smoke a little bit better. I'm still bringing sting grenades on any large missions that I take Grenadiers to in late game, but I'm not super excited to bring Grenadiers to those, and I think sting grenades go down a little bit in value. They're still really good. There's people are going to hear me say that and think like, oh, you think that sting grenades suck? No, they're insanely good. They're just not quite as good as they were in mid-game and can't carry this class quite as hard as they were before. At Gunnery Sergeant, we pick between 3 perks which do a similar thing in different ways. Volatile Mix, Bombardier, and Salvo all let our grenades hit more enemies or hit enemies in a better way. But they all do it differently. Salvo lets us chuck more grenades each turn. Bombardier lets us throw grenades further so we can hit the tiles we really need to hit. And Volatile Mix increases the area of effect of our grenades. So it's left to us to decide which of these 3 ways to make our grenades better is more appealing. Salvo, I think, is the most flexible of the options. You can actually use it to throw a grenade as your first action and then hunker, for example. You can also couple it with rapid deployment and throw 3 grenades a turn. I don't value it super highly. I gave it a 4 out of 6 for alpha striking and a 6 out of 10 for breakdowns. Can't be nice to just chuck all of your consumables all at once in a breakdown situation, especially on a lower threat mission where it doesn't matter that they're all gone. But it's not something that you love to do because your soldier doesn't do anything anymore once all the consumables are gone. And on an alpha striking turn, I mean, one, if you're building an alpha strike comp around your grenadier using 3 consumables in 1 turn, it's a pretty poor alpha strike comp probably. Like, you'll just run out of consumables, or you're like bringing lots of I don't think that's where you want to be. And if you ever did really need 3 grenades in a turn, you can already use rapid deployment plus a command from an officer. Grenades are going to be high value actions quite often, and so you can command for another grenade if you really need to. So, Salvo, meh. Bombardier, I think, is a little bit more promising. I gave it 6 out of 10 for alpha striking, 4 out of 10 for breakdowns. Bombardier has an interesting use case where you can use it to throw grenades at things beyond sight range, when coupled with the advanced grenade launcher, which also increases range of grenades. It's not a use case which I try to exploit very often. It's not actually very good in my opinion. If a pod isn't pulled yet, I've found that it's basically always better to let them walk into an Overwatch ambush, or to use a different class's consumable or cooldown to do nasty things to them. Something like Saturation Fire, Street Sweeper from an assault. I guess you have to be in concealment for that. What? It's just not that exciting to be chucking a grenade at a pod out of sight range. If you had Volatile Mix and Bombardier at the same time, if they were like at different tiers of the tech tree, so you could pick both of them, then this might get more exciting because you could throw an incendiary grenade and it would have +1 radius, so you'd be able to hit potentially everything in a pod that was unactivated with an incendiary grenade, which is certainly a very strong thing to be able to do, but they're not. They're on the same tier of the tree. So your incendiary grenades are still fairly small, and yeah. Volatile Mix, this is my go-to at Gunnery Sergeant for sure. It increases the radius of your grenades by 1, and with how circles work and pi r squared and all that, that ends up being a considerable increase in the number of tiles that a grenade is affecting, anywhere from like 25% to 125%, with the largest increase being for the smallest radius grenades. So this makes your incendiary grenades much larger AoE relative to what they were before. I don't know that there's anything really interesting to say about Volatile Mix. It just makes your grenades have bigger AoE and does all of the things that you'd expect that to do. Yeah, Volatile Mix, cool perk. It's not the most exciting level up. The Grenadier Gunnery Sergeant level up makes all of your grenades better though, so that's cool. Grenadier Master Sergeant perks are actually sort of crazy. They're... Okay, full kit's very obvious how you use it. +1 charge per grenade item in a utility slot, so you have 3 utility slots. Those are the consumable slots that every soldier gets, and then you have 1 grenade slot. So heavy ordnance, which we picked at Corporal, is making us have 1 more charge in our grenade slot, and then full kit is giving us up to 3 more grenades in our utility slots as well. Full kit's not that relevant if you're going to just like 15 or fewer enemy missions, in my opinion. You usually can get by with the grenades you bring without it. So full kit's more if you're going to try to make a grenadier stick on longer missions in late game. If you want to bring a grenadier to Cygate or Forge, full kit gets exciting. I don't think grenadiers are so exciting that you need to be doing that. If you maybe had good AWC perks on a grenadier, if the grenadier was doing something exciting for some other reason, then full kit could be a really good pick here. And I did say it was a good perk. I gave it 8 out of 10 for alpha strikes and 9 out of 10 for breakdowns. Having extras of these very powerful consumables is certainly strong and goes a long way to solving the problems of the class. The thing is, late game's sort of binary in the missions you go on, in my experience. They're either very low threat missions or very high threat missions, and so this doesn't quite flip the switch. You were always good in low threat missions, and you're never going to be good in high threat missions, so full kit can't quite solve everything. You remain very good in low threat missions and remain very cumbersome and unreliable in high threat missions, even with it. That said, you can definitely take full kit. It's a reasonable perk to take. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Ghost Grenade is one of the most fun perks in the game. A specialized smoke grenade that causes the targeted ally to enter concealment. So you get an extra smoke grenade, effectively, for free on missions. And the way that you throw it is you select an ally, and it locks onto them and goes to the tile they're on. There's a cloud of smoke around them, and they enter concealment. There are two ways that this perk sort of comes up and is valuable. One is if you are just needing to get a smoke grenade on a soldier, it does that. I feel so dumb for having just said that, but that is one of the things that it does. It puts a smoke grenade on a soldier. It's like having an extra smoke grenade and you can throw it at a soldier. Cool. If you're in a really tough breakdown situation, you're likely to have the soldier like immediately flanked and lose concealment, and so you're not able to really rely on that concealment. The smoke doesn't make it so your soldier's invisible forever. It just puts them in concealment and then they get detected again straight away. So, too bad. There are some potential combinations with Shadow Strike or something like that, where in like one turn you can chuck a smoke, conceal, Shadow Strike, I believe. But that's never super relevant in my experience. The other thing that Ghost Grenade does, though, is it gives you another charge of concealment on a mission, basically. So if you're on, say, an untimed mission and you have an assault with Street Sweeper, you can sneak the assault up to one of the enemy pods, use Street Sweeper, boom, they all die, because Street Sweeper does that. That's what Street Sweeper does. And then you can use Ghost Grenade to put the assault back in concealment, wait for the cooldown to come back, and do it to another pod. And that's pretty nice. That's why I have a 9 out of 10 for Alpha Striking here for Ghost Grenade. 2 out of 10 for Breakdowns. I just don't think it really does all that much. You can already just equip smoke grenades if that's what you want to do. There are some usages for Ghost Grenade in guerrilla operations as well if you want to stealth objectives, but they're very awkward to put together, and this is a Master Sergeant, so you don't really want to deploy a Master Sergeant Grenadier on one of those missions. You're fairly likely to lose the soldier. Grenadiers can't really hide very well on their own and things like that. So that's only if you really know what you're doing, and in my experience in late game, this isn't something that you have to do to stealth guerrilla operations anyway, so why bother? So, Ghost Grenade is an option largely for the cheesy factor of getting multiple like stealth ambushes against pods, in my opinion, with some value for throwing smoke at things. It's a really cool perk. It's fun from a like flavor perspective. IMO. I sort of pitched that perk, so I really like it. Anyway, Combat Engineer at Master Sergeant. Your explosives do significantly greater damage to cover objects and other things on the battlefield. I gave this a 9 out of 10 for Alpha Striking, 6 out of 10 for Breakdowns. And that might seem weird because I haven't recommended having frag grenades on Grenadiers. Flashbangs, smoke grenades, and incendiary grenades do not deal environmental damage. They don't remove cover. The thing about Combat Engineer, though, is we're at a point in the campaign where we can pretty easily have an exosuit or even a war suit on our Grenadier, and that comes with a heavy weapon, which does deal environmental damage, and Combat Engineer is going to buff that environmental damage hugely. All of a sudden, you're going to be like blowing up entire cone area effects worth of cover. And that's a powerful thing to do. Compare it to a bunker buster. It's not quite as powerful on long-term missions. It's not going to make your Grenadier great on the Forge, in my opinion. But on a light guerrilla operation in late game, this perk's insane if you couple it with a heavy weapon on an exosuit, and justifies bringing like plasma grenades or even frag grenades if those are all you have to the mission as well. So yeah, we can go combat engineer, we can go full kit. I don't take ghost grenade basically ever. I think I've talked a lot about how I find alpha strikes to be better just setting up overwatches than trying to make use of, you know, finicky cooldown abilities, which you could take something else that was always relevant for instead. Not sure that sentence worked. So typically combat engineer, full kit. I'm gonna select combat engineer this time. And so here's our soldier. What the soldier does is goes on late game guerrilla operations, has enough consumables to last through the vital turns of the mission, has an exosuit with one heavy weapon which can extremely reliably destroy cover for us now, and then watches the rest of the soldiers go off to Waterworld while he's like sipping beer at the bar, basically, because we didn't try that hard to make the soldier great on like swarming threat missions. Grenadiers do end up on Waterworld for me sometimes. If it happens, it's often if they had higher aim and I trained pistol perks on them in the AWC, perhaps coupled with a good offensive or defensive perk as well. Because having a pistol gives you consistent, reliable damage in a way that having, you know, a reliance on grenade consumables cannot. And then the grenade consumables actually are quite valuable in the final room, or if you're fighting one very difficult pod on the way to the avatars. Same goes for like Forge and Cygate missions. But in general, unless something exciting happened, the soldier is not going to make it into the A team for swarming missions, and that's okay. It's a fun little soldier. Does some very nice things in the mid game, isn't too bad in the early game, like at least you get to grenade things with it. And yeah, that's that. So that wraps up my opinions on Grenadiers and Long War II right now. I hope you guys enjoyed the videos. I have links to my Discord, Twitch, and you can subscribe on YouTube if you want to get more involved in my community, chat with people who are watching these videos, playing games, hang out with me when I'm not streaming or when you're not watching one of my YouTube videos. You can find me on Discord basically all the time. And then I have a link to my Patreon if you want to support financially. I write like monthly summary posts on Patreon, which you can read if you're interested in all the things that I'm doing. I have a collaborative campaign with Filthy Robot right now where we go into huge depth on strategic layer decisions as well as stuff that we're doing in the tactical missions, which people have been really enjoying. And there's all sorts of other stuff that I'm up to that you can read about on Patreon. So for now though, I'm out, and I'll see you tomorrow for another Long War II class review. All that's left are Specialists and Shinobis, both of which are extremely exciting classes, which are very easy to screw up in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts about those.